Hello! Welcome back to the Infinite Library. I'm Kyla, and today I'm going to be doing my January TBR and just talk about some of my goals for the coming year 2024. My hair is currently bleach blonde because I'm in the process of just redoing my pink. Yeah, this is what you're getting today, basically. So, before we start, I actually got some book mail today, so I thought we could open it together, and I'm so excited about what is in this. My copy has dispatched earlier than I was expecting. So, this should be the second book in the Letters of Enchantment series, the sequel to Divine Rivals, Ruthless Vows, and I'm so excited for this. Like, I'm going away in a couple of days to Norwich to have like a family Christmas, and a family wedding is also happening. And I'd like picked my books out for going away. And now I'm just like, well, I have to add this on to my December TBR, of course. So, here we go. I got the Waterstones edition because I love the art. So it's the same artist. I have also pre-ordered the Illumicrate special edition, but then I realised it's not actually coming out until like June, July or something, and I can't wait that long to read the sequel. So thankfully it's not the same art, but it's the same artist. So I'm so excited to read this. So yeah. I don't think it's just Waterstones, so I don't expect it to be anything special on the inside. Nah, it's just kind of, yeah, standard. But I'm really hyped to read this. I can't really say much about what it actually is because it's a sequel, but basically it is set in like this sort of a fantasy world, but also very inspired by sort of First World War, Second World War time, and these two characters, Iris and Roman, are journalists who end up both going to war to become war journalists. And there's a whole thing with magic typewriter where they're sending letters to one another, and there's romance obviously, and I just adored this book. The first book was like one of my favourite books of the whole of 2023, so I'm gonna get to this basically as soon as I can. I can see me starting this on my very long 5-hour journey train that I have to do on my way down to visit where I'm going for Christmas. So yeah, that's really exciting. I can't wait to read this. Oh, we've got a cute little envelope here on the inner page. Oh, okay, this is split into parts. Interesting. It's split into 4 parts. Okay, cool. So yeah, that is newly added to my December TBR. So first, I thought we would talk about some of my goals for 2024 going ahead. This has kind of marked my first, not quite 6 months on Booktube. I started around September on Booktube itself, but I did begin filming around August time. So I'm hitting about my 6 months here on Booktube, and I really enjoyed my time here. I don't think my videos are quite yet at the level that I'm really wanting them to be at. I still don't think I'm like as natural on camera as I want to be just yet, but I do think that with time that will kind of come, and I'm pretty happy about what I've accomplished on here so far. I've managed to do like a project rereading the Worst Witch series. I've read an awful lot. I've taken part in some readathons. I've just had a lot of fun, honestly, like sort of engaging with the community. I've made a few friends here and there, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I've got lots of exciting ideas for things I'm going to read, little projects I've got planned for the next year, but I'm not going to go crazy either because I have a tendency to like burn myself out quite easy. So I'm going to be taking it slowish, but I'm really excited about some of the things I've got planned anyway. I have basically 5 goals really in mind for 2024, and I don't think any of these goals are like crazy goals, honestly. This has been my best reading year in a long time. I used to read so much back before I did my undergraduate, and I read a whole lot when I was in university, and basically it kind of killed my reading for a while after university, which I think from what I've heard happens to a lot of people. So I had a couple of years where I was just reading miserably. I was, you know, not managing many books in a year, and this year it feels like since the pandemic, basically I've been slowly like able to get back into that reading mojo again, like how I used to be before university, where I just devour books And this year in particular, I think I've discovered that for me, joining things like readathons, having prompts and stuff is really good for my reading, because I'm not really a mood reader. I very rarely am in the mood to read a specific thing. I'll very happily read all sorts of different things. So, and I also get decision paralysis about what books I'm going to read next. So having things like prompts that are kind of setting a TBR for me works really well for me. And I've discovered that this year because I've read like over 100 books. You'll see all of the books that I've read once I do my end of year stats soon, because obviously I joined in September, so you haven't seen all the books I read prior to September as well. So I'd had a really good reading year. October was my best month ever with doing Becca's Spookopoly-thon. And yeah, I've discovered that honestly getting to record my thoughts about books, getting to discuss it, has really made me a better reader in some ways. Like, I think I'm a lot more thoughtful about what I'm reading. I think I'm learning what books I'm going to enjoy more. And also just booktube in general is so good for me just to learn about different books. Even, you know, I still love watching booktubers that maybe we don't have the same tastes as well, but I love hearing what other people have to say about books. So yeah, that was me just going off on a tangent apparently. But my first and my main goal, to be honest, for 2024 is to try and get my physical TBR lower. Basically, I bought a lot of books this year. I already had quite a few books I hadn't read yet. I currently have, if we count Ruthless Vows that I just got, I am currently sitting at 226 books on my shelves. Some of them are also ebooks as well, so they're not all physical books. But I have 226 books currently unread on my TBR, and that's a higher number than I really want it to be. I think for me this year, even though I read loads, and I have read quite a few things on my TBR, one of the main culprits for me has been the library, funnily enough. And don't get me wrong, I will always support the library. I always will encourage people to take things out from the library, but I'm that person who will go to the library to like take one book out and I will end up with like 5 books. So that has kind of slowed me down sometimes in my physical TBR, because I just found new and exciting things in the library to read as well. So I'm probably going to not read as much from the library this year. I'll still be using it mostly to sort of check out maybe sequels, to check out some books I have to read for my book club, and if there is just something that I really want to read but I don't necessarily know if I'm going to like it, that is when I will use the library basically. But my main goal is to focus on my physical TBR and to get that down to a better number. So we'll see by the end of 2024 if I manage to do that or not. My other goals are somewhat smaller, but one of them is a project, and I'm going to leave that to the end just because I'm going to have to do some show and tell for it. So my second goal is that I just want to read more manga. I feel like I've read some manga this year, but I feel like there's a lot of series I want to check out. I don't think I've read a full series in a long time. I'm working through Higurashi at the moment and I'm really enjoying that. But I feel like my level of manga is nowhere near as much as I used to read, and that is probably because I've been reading more novels, which is great, don't get me wrong. But I want to read more manga this year and sort of get back into that again. I used to be really into what series were out. I used to always be in the know of what was coming out. Same with anime, honestly. That's also a little like personal resolution to myself, is that I want to watch more anime series this year. That was also my goal for 2023, and I watched a few, but nowhere near what I kind of wanted to. So yeah, I do have a couple of projects in mind anyway that will kind of make me be reading more manga. So I'm thinking of doing like some little manga tournaments, reading like a whole bunch of first volumes of manga, and then I will carry on the ones that like I might kind of like rank them, and it'll be the ones that win in the top bracket or something that I will end up continuing on this channel. Yeah, basically I want to read more manga, and then on the same vein I also want to read more sci-fi and more horror. Sci-fi is the main thing here though, because I've been really wanting to get more into sci-fi. I'm not really too knowledgeable about sci-fi though, so particularly because the sci-fi that I have read has mostly been LGBT and I love that. So I do want to be reading a lot more sci-fi this year. I may finally start the Red Rising series, who knows. But if you have any recommendations for good sci-fi books that you think I'll like, please comment down below, because fantasy is my wheelhouse, horror is also my wheelhouse. Sci-fi is not my wheelhouse, but I really want to get more into it because I've enjoyed what I have read so far. So yeah, please give me some recs for that. I really want to be adding more of that into my TBR. Horror, I love horror. I just have so many books on my physical TBR that are horror that I haven't got to yet. So it's not that I'm not reading horror, I just want to kind of read more, basically, because even though I feel like I've been reading more fantasy, and I want to read more horror as well this year. On the same vein of what I was saying before about how I've kind of found like prompts and stuff really helps motivate me with reading, I do want to do some more readathons in the coming year. I'll obviously still be doing Aurelium, the Magical Readathon, in April and October, I believe it should be. I found that really motivating. I'm going to be doing Winterween in January, so you'll see when I go over my TBR plans for January, a couple of the books I put aside there are specifically Winterween plans, run by Gabby Reads. I did do Summerween last year, and this one just sounds like a fun little thing. It's just for a few days, and the prompts were quite fun to kind of fill. I'll put the prompts thing here for you to see. But basically, it's just something that happens in January, so I'm definitely going to be doing that. As for other readathons, I'm just going to keep an eye out and see what sort of strikes my attention. I've seen there's kind of like a Pokemon themed readathon, which has kind of intrigued me. I was speaking to Kristin, and she was talking about a specific dragon readathon, which I'll link the channel below with the person who's doing that. I haven't had a chance to look into that yet, but I do have a lot of dragon books in my physical TBR, some of which are in my January TBR anyway. Also, if you know of any readathons that you think might be interesting to me, let me know, because I only kind of find out about them through other booktubers, so I sometimes find out about them late, which is always sad, because then I'm like, I wish I could have joined. For me, readathons are good, and I just want to try do more of them every so often because it just helps me read. So my final goal for the year is related to me trying to clear some of my physical TBR. I was inspired by Meg with Books. She does kind of like a Christmas wrap-up kind of thing where she wraps up a bunch of books, and this year she did a retro version where she basically picked like the top 50 books that she hasn't read yet. It's like the 50 books that she's had the longest on her shelves, and she's basically like making herself read them by doing it as like a randomized unwrapping thing. I'm taking the idea of that, but I'm not going for the top 50. So I'm just actually going to pick my 12 books that I've been on my TBR, physically TBR, the longest. And I am committing myself to reading one of those a month. And I have a little TBR jar that you did see me unwrap possibly in my Illuma Crate unboxing. And I've written all of them down, and I'm going to draw one of these every month. And that is me committing to reading these 12 books this year. So I like to do it randomly just because it adds a little bit of fun into the proceedings. This does mean, however, that there is a high possibility that I'm going to have a month where I'm reading giant books already and I get another giant book, because some of these are really big. But I had a lot of fun finding the books basically that I've had on my shelves the longest. Surprisingly, they are not as old as I thought they were going to be for some of them. I realised that when I moved house, I did actually have like a good culling of my books, and I basically just got rid of a whole bunch that I just didn't really think I was ever going to be that interested in reading. And a lot of those are books that I'd had for like 10 plus years. So I had kind of done a little on haul before I moved. So these books, whilst old, are not as old as they could have been. So I think the one that is the most recent is maybe from about 2-3 years ago. So not too bad. So I'm going to get the pile and I'm going to show you my 12 oldest books that I have not read yet. And when I do my January TBR, we're going to pick one out, and I'm going to have to add that to my January TBR. So here they are. They are quite chunky, some of them. As you can see, there's only 12 books, one per month, but yeah, big. So I'm going to go through them all and show you what it is that I'm going to be reading over the next year. So we have Prince of Fools by Mark Lawrence. This is the start of a new series. I really enjoyed The Prince of Thorns, and I picked this up ages ago and just never got around to reading it. So that is one of the books. Then we have this Asian book, which is The Sandman Book of Dreams. This is actually a series of short stories, I believe, and I love the Sandman series. This is edited by Neil Gaiman, by the way, but I think it's a bunch of different authors because it's an anthology, and it's like stories based on the world. But the reason why I haven't picked this up yet, look at the font. It's so freaking tiny. It's not a big book, but every time I try to go to read this, I open the book and I see how small the font is, and I'm just like, nah, not happening. But I do really want to read this, and I feel like if it's short stories as well, that's going to make it more bearable. So I'm committing. I'm finally going to read this. Then we have the first of the chunky fantasy. We have the first book in the Night Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks. This is The Way of Shadows. I have actually read this before a long time ago. I think I have the first 2 books. But the thing is that I read it, I think I liked it, and I don't remember anything. So I really want to give this a reread just to see if it kind of still holds up for me, because I think I liked it then, but I also think that was back when I was reading a lot of stuff and I wasn't very analytical, and I think my tastes in fantasy have changed. So I'm going to give this another go and see if it still holds up, and if it does, then I will continue the series. So this is kind of a reread, but I don't remember much about this whatsoever. I know it's about assassins, and that's all I remember. So yeah, that book. Then we have a book that you've probably seen before, especially in my Spookopolis font, and I've just been really putting off reading it because I didn't like the book previous. And it is Anne Rice, who is one of my favourite authors, but this is Princess Stat and the Realms of Atlantis. I picked this up a while after it came out. I think I didn't even realise it had come out, but I didn't like the book Princess Stat. So I didn't like where it went, and I know this is a continuation of that storyline, so I bought it because it's Anne Rice, and I'll always buy Anne Rice. But I'm not looking forward to this one, honestly. But I do want to finally get to it because it might surprise me, and it might be better than what I think it's going to be. So I will finally get to this year. Then we have a light novel collection, which is freaking massive. Look at the size of this. This is Strawberry Panic, the complete novel collection. There is an anime and I think probably a manga for this, but essentially it's kind of a GL girls love romance series about this bunch of all girls schools, and there are 3 different couples, and it's very cute. And yeah, I really liked the anime. I feel like it's kind of problematic now, to be honest, with how some of the relationships go down. It's kind of stereotypical. It's very old-fashioned girls love kind of stuff. I've had this for ages. It is absolutely ginormous. It is 3 books in one, I believe, and it is 666 pages basically. So yeah, it's huge, but I do want to read it. I'm sick of seeing this on my shelf and not having read it yet. So at least it was a light novel. It should hopefully be an easy read. And I've also got this chunky one, but this is also a couple of books in one. And it's hard to show up, but it is actually a series of 3 books by L.J. Smith, and it's called Dark Visions. And I don't know anything about this, honestly. I picked it up because I liked L.J. Smith books, and then I happened to find this, and it was around the time that I'd kind of stopped reading her, so I just never got around to it. I know it's about vampires, and the main person is a witch, and they go to a school for psychic teens or something? I don't know. I'm not really sure what this is about. But I really liked L.J. Smith stuff, so I'm gonna finally get to it this year, and we'll see if it's any good or not. I then have the chunkiest book on the list, and the only reason why I haven't read it yet is because it's so damn chunky. But that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. There is also another book by Susanna Clarke in this list, funnily enough, but it's much shorter. But yeah, I think I'm gonna love this. I really do. I won't let myself watch the adaptation of it until I've read this, but it's just so big. It's so chunky. It's, oh god, it's like it is 1,000+ pages. It's so massive. So I'm gonna cry if I get this in January, because I already have really big book in January's TBR. But I don't think there's any reason why I'm not gonna love this. I just need to finally buckle in and just get to it. It's probably going to take me a while when I do get to it. I can see it taking me longer than a month because it's heckin' chunky. But I'm committing. I'm finally gonna read it. Next, we have Temeraire by Naomi Novik. I finally finished her Deadly Education series this year, so I think it's time I finally get to some of her fantasy series, and I've had this book for ages. Funny story, I actually picked this book up by pure accident because I had a pre-order from Waterstones that I picked up, and when I was there, they were just like, oh yeah, you get this too for free. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know what it was. And I was like, dragons, cool, it looks good. And then I just never read it. I actually know obviously a lot more about this series now and this author, so I'm actually really interested to read it now. But it's interesting how I ended up getting hold of it because it wasn't a book I intentionally got. Okay, we have the last 4 on the list. So we have a Sarah Waters book. I really like Sarah Waters books. I read a couple of them and I adore them. And I just haven't got around to this one yet. It is A Little Stranger. She writes a lot of really good sapphic historical kind of books. I don't know if this is sapphic. It's definitely still historical, but I'll read it because it's Sarah Waters, so that one definitely. I then have a horror, which came in a book box, Book of Horrors, and I read the other one, really liked it, but I never got around to this one. The cover just really draws me in. I think it's really interesting, and it is The Hollow Tree by James Brogden. I don't know anything about it, other than it's going to be a horror, so I just need to get to it, basically. There's no reason why I haven't got to it yet. I've just always picked up other things instead of it. Okay, last 2. We have the other Susanna Clarke book, Piranesi. I bought this probably when it came out, so let's call myself out and work out when it was published. It came out 2020, so I've had this for 3-ish years at this point, so this is probably one of the most recent ones in this things. But yeah, it's really short. It's probably not going to take me long to read. I'm probably going to love it. I just need to get to it. And then the final book, this has also got a weird story behind it. So it's Tamora Pierce, and if it looks strange, it's because it's an arc. It's called Tempests and Slaughters by Tamora Pierce. I got this by pure accident. I basically went to a horror film festival quite locally, and when I was there, they had this like room set up in the front, and there was just a whole load of books that were just there, and they were like, you can just take them, they're just free books, and this was one of them. I picked it up purely because I saw it was Tamora Pierce and I really liked her Lioness series. I didn't realise for ages that this was an arc. I was like, this just looks so weird. It's really pretty though. It's got like some nice foiling going on here. I don't think it's been read. I think whoever got this got it and then just passed it on or something. It apparently was originally coming out in September 2018. So obviously the real book is out now. I've had this arc and it's kind of nostalgic for me to keep hold of this arc. Yeah, I'm gonna read it and see what it's like. And funnily enough, I'm reading my own first arc that I've ever received at the moment. So it seems kind of poetic that I'm finally gonna get to read the other arc. But yeah, that is all 12 of the books that I'm gonna be reading over this year, one a month hopefully, but some of these are really chunky, so I can see them sort of taking longer than a month for me to get to. Okay, so on to my January TBR plans. I have a couple of books here, but I'm gonna be quite chill about how I read, I think, because my book club book is massive. So this is the pile. I have one more to add to the pile which I haven't got hold of yet, plus I'm gonna be drawing whatever I get from the TBR. So it should be a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books is my plan. I don't know if I'll get to them all, but I'm gonna give it a try. So my first book that I am committed to reading is my book club book, and we're finally gonna read The Priory of the Orange Tree. Look at this chunker. It's as big as my face. I'm really excited to read this. I really do want to read it. It's a dragon book and I've heard so much about it and I just need to read it basically. So because we have like a longer break in between our book club meetings with December, Christmas, that kind of thing, and we'd kind of joked before about how we'd read this book but it's too long, and then I put it on as a joke, honestly, in the options when people were voting, and everyone voted for it and everyone really wanted to read it. So yeah, I guess we're reading Priory of the Orange Tree, so I'm really excited to get started on this. I'm hoping I can finish it in time. It is a chunker. It is like 800 pages long, but I'm excited to read it. I just hope I'm gonna like it. So that is my first book, and everything else may fall to the wayside, potentially, depending on how long this takes me, but I'm excited to get to it. Obviously, I want to try and fit in Ruthless Vows. I'm probably going to take this with me, so I may even do it in December, honestly, now, but I just want to I want to get to it as soon as possible, so I might finish it in December, but if not, it's going to roll over to January, and I will be reading this, because I have to know what happens. Likewise, I need to get to Emily Wilde. I am so excited to read this. I was almost going to take this with me to December, but then Ruthless Vows arrived early as well. I got an early copy of this by pure accident. It wasn't supposed to come out like for another month or so, but Waterstones accidentally shipped a whole bunch out early. So yeah, I'm really excited to have it, and I'm definitely going to be reading it in January. Then I have 2 buddy reads that I'm going to be doing. I should be continuing Strange the Dreamer by Lenny Taylor. I'm a few chapters in at the moment, quite liking it so far. Not really sure where it's going, but I think it's going to be an easy read, so I'm reading this with Jules Gemharts. We're just taking our time with it, and I feel like it's the kind of book that needs some time to breathe, so I'm okay with that. I also have another book which I haven't got a copy of yet, so I'm just going to put it here. But me and my 2 friends, we do some buddy reads every so often, and we like reading horror. And we read Salem's Lot last year, which we all really enjoyed, so we decided to do another Stephen King this year, and we've decided to do It. I love the It films. I've been dying to read this book, so I'm really excited to finally get to it, basically. So I'll be buddy reading this. It probably will not be finished in January. We're just going to, again, take our time with it because it's quite big. But yeah, I'll probably be starting it in January. Then we have 2 books that I've picked for Winterween. So I'm just going to bring up the little graphic here for what the Winterween props are, and then I'll be able to tell you which one of these there is. So I got really lucky, and basically I found one book that fits most of the prompts. Not all the prompts, unfortunately, but most of the prompts. Of the 6 prompts, I managed to find one that, number 1, which is read a book in the dark, is super easy to fulfill, so that's not a big deal, that will just get done. But I managed to find one that fulfills the prompts, fulfills the 2nd, the 4th, and the 5th prompts, which is read a book. I'm just going to bring my laptop over so I can see. And that is, read a book with a witch on the cover, read a book with purple on the cover, and read a book with double in the title. I picked this up the other month, and I want something nice and cozy to read, honestly. Given that I'm going to be reading some, like, intense epic fantasy, I'm feeling cozy books right now anyway, so Emily Wilde is a perfect choice for this month. And then I was like, this is the perfect book to read for this. So obviously there's a lot of purple here. We've got the W, we've got witch in the title, and I know this is just a book about witches. There's a little witch hat here. So yeah, I'm gonna be reading The Various Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, and I think it's just gonna be a fun read, honestly. So that fulfills most of the prompt handily. For Winterween, the only prompt I have left is to read a book with a snowy or winter setting. And I have this manga that my friend lent me, which is a cute little BL called Snow Fairy, and it is set in a snowstorm. So that sounds perfect. It's going to be a quick, easy read. This readathon only happens over a weekend, so it's like the first weekend in January. So I need some like quick reads, really. So rather than trying to overload myself with a lot of things, I was like, a manga and a fairly short, cozy fantasy. So this is perfect. This is my Winterween. TBR basically. So yeah, I'm really excited to read these. And then finally, we have to pick what I'm gonna get from the jar. I am terrified, honestly, that I'm gonna get something massive. If I get Jonathan Strange, I'm gonna be so upset. Because it's only 12, I'm not gonna allow myself a reroll, so whatever I get, I get. So, here we go, giving him a shake for good luck. What feels good? Okay, I've got one, I think. Oh, The Little Stranger. Let me get it. Okay, The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. This isn't the smallest, but I know I love her writing and I'll fly through it, I think. So I am not upset with that. So yeah, good job TBR Jar. You did not screw me over on my first one. Be good to me next month too. Let me just get them all so you can see them all together. Minus it, obviously. Okay, here we go. This is the TBR for January. Pretty excited about all of these, honestly. There are some cracking books here. Obviously It as well is going to be on the top, but I couldn't manage to, I haven't got a copy of that at the moment. I'll probably pick it up in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, that is it. That is the TBR for January. Pretty excited about all of these books. So yeah, that's it really. Editing Kyla here. Editing Kyla about to go to a wedding actually. But there was something else I meant to add to this video. And that is basically that I've decided, I've kind of been inspired by Literary Diversion's bingo board for next year, and I thought it was a good way to also sort of put all of my goals in one place. So I've made my own little bingo board, which I'm going to show right now. So yeah, those are the plans. We'll check in kind of on a monthly basis, I think, likely whenever I do my wrap-ups to see how I'm doing, but I think it's going to be a fun way to monitor my progress, and not at all terrifying. Let me know if you've got any exciting January TBR plans. If you're doing Winterween, feel free to put your recommendations down at the bottom as well. I'm really intrigued to see what other people are going to read for it. But until the next video, stay safe, stay cozy, and I'll see you next time. Bye!